So last week was Funerals Week in my Unitarian Universalist preaching class. We each had to write a eulogy or remembrance as if we were officiating a funeral and share it with the class. It was like 8 funerals in one. I chose my Uncle Roderick, who died 3 years ago. The first step of the project was to interview a few people about the dead person. I invited 5 family members to the Zoom call, but got more than I bargained for, as husbands and cousins were called from across the house to join in. Everyone wanted to talk about Roderick. I asked the assigned questions. How would you describe him? What were some of his hobbies? What were some of his accomplishments? We delighted in telling Roderick stories about fishing and teaching, traveling, and being with family. It didn't really matter what specifically the stories were about. We were loving Roderick into the room with us. We got to the last question. Why do you think the world is a little different because of Roderick? From outside the little box of the Zoom screen, a voice called out, "For us, it's different. For us, it's different." Something I'm assuming I have in common with you all is that you will die someday, and that you haven't died yet. I hope this is safe to assume. So that leaves all of us in the same boat, which is to say we are inexperienced in the art of dying, and where we are going remains a mystery. Unitarian Universalists have a habit of giving non-answers to mysterious questions. Is there a God? Well, some people believe this, and some people say that, and you can believe whatever you want. What is the meaning of life? Well, some people say this, and some people say that, and you can believe whatever you want. What happens when we die? Well, some people say this, and some people say that, and you can believe whatever you want. There is a kernel of a very good theology here. When we say you can believe whatever you want, what we mean is your relationship with the divine is trustworthy. I trust you. This is a good and reasonable response to a theoretical question asked out of a wandering curiosity. But what about when the question is immediate, painfully real, as in, no, really, I need an answer? What happens when we die? Sometimes whatever you want to believe isn't enough of an answer, and there is more we can say about what happens when we die. My uncle already gave us one answer. For us, it's different. For the people left behind, the world is different. We leave behind our stories and the lives we've built, the advanced directives we crafted with care or never got around to, the file boxes and the shelves full of tchotchkes, a lifetime of memories dispersed with the people we shared them with. We're coming up on Samhain, Halloween, Dia de los Muertos, and All Saints' Day. The veil between the living and the dead is thinning. It's a good time to tell the stories of the dead, to love them into the room, to think about what they left behind on this side of the veil. Someone who put a lot of love into what they left behind for the living is Andrea Gibson, the poet who wrote our reading today, In the Chemo Room. They left a nice big paper trail for us, poems and YouTube videos, and Substack essays. There's even a documentary that they co-created about their process of dying that will come out next month. For Andrea, learning they were dying released them from a crippling fear of the worst possible scenario. They described the first year after their diagnosis as the most blissful one of their life. The worst possible thing had happened, and there they were. Their love for their wife deepened. The squirrels were funnier. Basketball and dancing became more delightful. Far from taking away their joy, the imminence of death made their joy grow even bigger. Wasn't it death that taught me to stop measuring my lifespan by length, but by width? Do you know how many beautiful things can be seen in a single second? How you can blow up a second like a balloon and fit infinity inside it? There is a lot to learn from the stories that the dead leave behind. Lives well lived, deaths well lived. Teach us to center our values and to pack as much joy and purpose into our finite days as possible. Knowing one day we will join the beloved dead, and it will be our stories that are left behind. Paul Kalanithi was a neurosurgeon, a child of immigrants, a lover of literature. His wife, Lucy, who he met in medical school, said she fell in love with him in part because he was so funny. He wore a giant fake mustache to take his ID photo for his medical residency, and he used it all through until graduation. He kept a gorilla suit in the trunk of his car, just in case. Paul was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic lung cancer when he was 36. And he died 22 months later in 2015. He wrote a book about it, When Breath Becomes Air, that was published by his family after he died. It's shorter than he meant it to be, and it's beautiful. He captured the transition from neurosurgeon to patient. It's assigned reading in a lot of medical school classes, but I think it should be assigned reading for everybody. It captures the process of prioritizing your values when you have to make trade-offs. And it captures the transition from helper to helped, one that I know many of us rail against. Dying is the ultimate vulnerability. You're incrementally forced to surrender care of everything that matters most to you, to someone else. Dying pulls us out of the delusion that we are anything other than desperately interdependent. Paul wrote to a friend that in writing his book, he didn't want to make dying seem sensational. He just wanted to say, here's what lies up ahead on the road. His story reminds us to practice letting in real help, to practice allowing our real dependence. I have a hope that one day I will be an old lady, still sharp as a tack, well practiced from a lifetime of letting in help and allowing my dependence, reveling in the joy of being with the people who want to take care of me. But since we don't know when the scales will tip to that ultimate dependence in death, I try to practice letting in help all the time, so that hopefully I will be very good at it when I need to be. The world we live in is very death avoidant these days, as capitalism has taught us to leave this too to the professionals, the hospice nurses, the clergy, the senior care attendants, the funeral home workers. The subtext, and sometimes the text itself, says, you can't handle this. The dead and dying will make you sick. if not in your body, then definitely in your mind. Death isn't just the ultimate vulnerability, it's the ultimate fear. Hospitals are often so focused on keeping people alive that death feels like a failure. There are some billionaires who are funding research to try to make themselves immortal, and they really believe it. When you die in the video game, it's game over. You failed. Simultaneously, the news is full of death. I don't need to list the ways for you to feel it. We have more access to impersonal stories about death than we ever have. For the content machines, death is just another lever to pull in the manipulation of our attention. This is an important time of year to remind each other, to remind myself, that death is not sensational, nor is it in and of itself a failure, nor is it something to be kept at arm's length, or more often, 20-foot pole length. Death is personal. It is natural. It is to be held close, close, close. In the mock funeral interview about my uncle, my mom has tears in her eyes. She says, "Roderick was not done living." Paul Kalanithi and his wife Lucy decided to have a baby just after his terminal diagnosis. She asked him, "Don't you think saying goodbye to your child will make your death more painful?" Paul responded, "Wouldn't it be great if it did?" Andrea Gibson found their bliss when they learned they were going to die. "I love this life. I whisper into my doctor's stethoscope so she can hear my heart." I am not saying that you should welcome death. I am saying that I want to create a life that I will be devastated to leave. I am saying you can cry while you're dancing. You can party at the memorial service. You can hold your favorite people even as they die, even as you die. Joy does not depend on immortality. About 6 years ago, Stephen Colbert had Keanu Reeves on as his guest on The Late Show, and I promise this is relevant. Keanu was on a press tour for John Wick Chapter 3, and the two of them spent a good chunk of the interview talking about what it's like to fight on a horse. At the end of this otherwise completely ridiculous and silly interview, Stephen Colbert says, "What do you think happens when you die, Keanu Reeves?" He takes a deep breath. You can tell he's really thinking about it. He says, "I know that the ones who love us will miss us." Stephen Colbert doesn't respond, and everyone starts clapping. "I know that the ones who love us will miss us." A straight answer to an unanswerable question. From my uncle, for us, the world is different. From Andrea Gibson, my love, I was so wrong. Dying is the opposite of leaving. From Paul Kalanithi, wouldn't it be great if it did? When you die, you're going to leave behind stories. You're going to leave behind the life you build with the ones who are still living. Your life isn't just yours. It belongs to the people you are living it with. When you die, The joy you build together will be the inheritance of the still living, the still loving. Isn't that beautiful?